how GLP-1s in general, like how do they really work, and how are they like or unlike, bariatric surgery? And there's, of course, a few. So you can explain that to us. That would be great.
Besides the obvious, besides
Sure,
the,
sure.
Thanks, Kat.
yeah.
Well, GLP-1s are amazing.
Yeah.
And they are a paradigm shift, game-changing medication. Whatever superlatives you want to throw out on there are, for the most part, appropriate. And the way they work is really innovative. GLP-1 is a hormone that your body makes. It's made at the end of your intestines. And you have to think of your GI tract as constantly sending information to your brain. It might be sending something like, I'm really distended and I'm filled with air. And that may show up as like a cramping sensation, right? But the cramping sensation is created in your brain based on signaling coming from your intestines, okay? And then your brain is making you aware of that because it's sort of unusual and painful. But it's always sending information to your brain constantly. Is the stomach empty? Is the stomach stretched? As the nutrients move down the intestine, those parts of the intestines where the nutrients show up are sending signals. Hey, there's food here. Hey, there's no food here. Send more food down. That may manifest as hunger. So you're constantly getting signals from your GI tract, both neural through what's called your vagus nerve and hormonal, where the cells release hormones into your bloodstream, which circulate to your brain. And the end of your intestines have a special cells that produce GLP-1. And the GLP-1 hormone, when it reaches your brain, makes you feel very full. Okay? High GLP-1s would be associated with that feeling at the end of Thanksgiving dinner when you're like, you have to push yourself away from the table, when you're like feeling the food in here.
Yeah.
Okay? But
he's pointing at his neck, listening audience.
Yeah, there's no food in your neck. There's no food in your chest. The esophagus isn't filled up with food. But what's happened is food has reached the end of the intestines. And the intestines don't want you to lose nutrients. And they can only process things at a certain capacity. So when you've overwhelmed the system, meaning food is making it to the very end and still isn't fully processed, that those sensors can pick up that you have fats and proteins that haven't been broken down and absorbed yet, and they will be at risk of being pushed into the colon and lost forever, which for your body's perspective, evolutionarily, would be a disaster. Because when will the next meal come?
Yeah.
Is the famine around the corner? The body evolutionarily has no idea that there are bodegas on every corner and liquid drinks filled with calories. Like in nature, there was just water. So you can't even pick out the calorie content of a liquid because for a million years it was always zero. So the body didn't evolve to pick up how much calories is in a liquid. So the GLP, the notion of losing nutrients into the colon is a disaster, and the body will do anything to stop the input once food has reached the end. So GLP-1 creates this tremendous satiety signal or a fullness signal in your brain. So these GLP-1 medications, when you inject it, it stimulates the release of that hormone from that part of the intestine, even though there's no food there.
Yeah.
So you're tricked, your brain is tricked into thinking you just ate a huge meal, even though you haven't eaten anything.
Yeah.
And
that's
awesome. that makes you full, even though you haven't eaten. You're not even like not hungry. You're like, I'm not interested in food. I'm not thinking about food. On the day after your injection, it might be 5 o'clock before you even realize that you haven't eaten anything because you don't have any hunger signaling or triggering. And you also may have, some studies are starting to show, and certainly reports from patients who are on the medications, all of those added benefits. After you eat a full meal, you may not worry about what's going on. You just may feel satisfied and good.
Yeah.
And that can be the decrease in food chatter that people talk about, the decrease in anxiety, a calmness, that they experience on this medication, all of those sort of ancillary benefits that people are reporting,
Yeah.
typically because of GLP-1. Let's talk about weight loss surgery.
Okay.
Okay. Talk about a band. A band is a mechanical roadblock. Okay. It's a device that's wrapped around the very top portion of the stomach and creates a holdup of food. And as the food goes up in the esophagus, it creates discomfort and you stop eating because you don't want to vomit. It's sort of a negative feedback inhibition,
Yes.
behavioral modification to not eat so much because you don't want to vomit and you don't want to feel the pain of having the food build up above the band. It really works mechanically. And one of the main reasons it fails so often is how counterproductive it is hormonally, right? And Kim, you will probably be able to speak on this, but I'm sure there were times where you ate a certain amount, you were very hungry, you ate a certain amount, you filled up that space right above the band. You knew you couldn't eat more
Yes.
mechanically, but you weren't
Yes.
satisfied.
No.
That deep hunger was still there.
Yes. Yes. That is
Wow.
100% what it was like. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I think eventually my stomach, the non-banded part, kind of started getting smaller and smaller because I was eating less and less. But there's also a way to kind of defeat the band, which is you drink when you eat,
Right.
right? And a lot of people do that because I found I wasn't getting enough water. I was constantly dehydrated. So I mean, like I would drink when I would eat just to try to get it in, and
Just
that
to
would push
sort
the
of
food through.
lubricate the system. That's
Yes.
one of the things with weight loss surgery patients we tell them not to do.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them to lubricate the system. We want the food to build up. We want them to feel full. And you're asking like the body to not satisfy itself. And if
Yes.
there's a way for it to get those nutrients that it wants, it's going to do whatever it can. It's going to convince you to drink when you eat. It's going to push you to ice cream,
Yeah.
or cheese, which is
Yes.
very soft, that will
Cereal.
go down the
Yeah.
band, cereal and milk, which is almost like cake when it gets
Yeah.
soft. If you think about a sugar cereal with milk. And
Yes.
the hormonal effect of a band, think about it. Is food really ever getting to the end of that intestine? You're eating
Right.
less mechanically, but it's going to be absorbed at the same rate because your intestines haven't really been changed.
Yeah.
And your stomach makes ghrelin, which is a hunger hormone that we don't often talk about because there isn't yet any medication that suppresses it to help
Mhm.
with weight loss. But when the band's in place and you lose weight, it's just like losing weight with a restrictive diet. Your ghrelin goes up, and so you're hungrier. So your hormones are working to defeat the band in most cases.
Yeah.
A gastric bypass or a sleeve have significantly different hormonal impacts than a band. And I'm sure that this wasn't all spelled out for you.
No, I was
You had the
27.
and that's
They may have spelled it out, but I wasn't listening because I was
right.
27 and I was like, oh, really? I'm
You
getting
were
this
like,
and insurance is paying for it. It's going to make me lose 100 pounds. Awesome. Like, how you
but were
are.
you thinking band all the way in, or were you led by your doctor?
I mean, I basically went in and I think banned. I had seen an episode of Oprah where there was a girl that was very young, like who had gotten lap band, and she was talking about it. And I thought, oh my God, like maybe that would help me. Oh my God. Like, because I've been binge eating since I was 8,
Right.
So I went in going like, I don't want to have gastric bypass. And keep in mind, there was no like sleeve or anything like that in 2007, so I went in and I was like, this is what I want to do and my insurance will pay for it, and like, and they were like, yeah, like it's 1,000 times safer, let's do it. And I was like, oh, because I was really young, I didn't want to
Right.
put myself, and I also wanted to have a child, and I was concerned of what that would be like, and the band was very much like positioned to me as it can be removed. It can be removed. Like
Right.
I can't give you your stomach back if I take it away, but like I can, that's how they would say it. It
But
was
nobody, and that's all like standard lingo by a doctor who wants you to get a band,
Yeah.
especially a doctor who only does bands.
Yeah.
I do bands, sleeves, bypasses, revisions. So
Yeah.
I can offer whatever's appropriate for the patient. I'm not pushing them specifically to a one procedure that I do.
Yeah.
And the reversibility argument doesn't really hold because you have a chronic disease.
Yeah.
You don't want an intervention for a chronic disease that's reversible. You want something that's reproducible, effective, with a low complication profile. No one says like, I have stomach cancer, cut my stomach out, but I want it to be reversible.
Right.
No one wants their cancer back.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, but to sell reversibility was like a way to push a ban. Now look at a sleeve. A sleeve cuts off most of your stomach and leaves you with a banana shaped sleeve, like the sleeve of my shirt, right? A hollow tube that's thin and narrow. That's what your stomach becomes. It's not a device that's like a long plastic sleeve. It's just your stomach, but it's shaped like a hollow tube that's like a banana. And by cutting off 3/4 of the stomach, your ghrelin, which is made by the stomach, it's a hormone made by the stomach to stimulate eating, goes to the floor. And therefore people say like, I surgically remove their appetite. They're not interested in food. They're not thinking about food. And because the mechanical function of the stomach is so much less, food is less broken down and in the intestines gets further down. So even though you haven't operated on the intestines, when you get a sleeve, your GLP-1 levels go up. Because the food is less mechanically broken down, so it makes it much further in the intestines, stimulating those hormone release from the end of the intestines. A gastric bypass goes even further. It takes your stomach and staples off a small little pouch the size of an egg, and then takes your intestines and connects it at like the midway point of your intestine. So the food goes straight from that little pouch with minimal breakdown right into the like 50-yard line of your intestine, or even the 30-yard line of your intestine. And that's going to really stimulate the end of your intestines or the hind gut to release GLP-1. So
I like it.
It was by trying to figure out how gastric bypass was so effective in doing what? Curing diabetes. That led to the revolution of GLP-1s. Because what they saw was people who got gastric bypass, they were able to come off their insulin completely before they even left the hospital.
Wow.
So it clearly wasn't weight loss. Something else was going on that allowed diabetics to come off their medications.
I had heard that.
And so by reverse engineering and doing studies of the hormone changes in the GI tract after gastric bypass compared to before gastric bypass, that's where they came to this understanding of GLP-1s for diabetes. And that's why all the GLP-1 medications, Byetta, Victoza, they all come out as diabetes medication.
Yeah.
And I saw early on that these medications had effectiveness with weight loss.
Yeah.
But it didn't really click as something to do with non-diabetics.
Yeah.
But clearly the data was there, and that was capitalized by Novo Nordisk when they rebranded Ozempic as Wegovy.